Hi, this is Catherine Rosasco Mitchell, and this video is for the parents and the teachers that are implementing the Get Sensational Attention video. If you look at the video as more of a tool to help children understand how they listen, and you'll see that they'll be able to listen easier with you and understand when they're not listening and what they're doing. So it's really a lesson about listening and how listening is related to attention. And if you want your kids to listen better, you have to teach them an awareness of what they're doing when they're not listening. And to do that, they got to get more aware themselves. And because children feel energy more than they think, the feeling nature of the body will kind of show them what they're doing and how they're processing whatever's going on and what was happening when they're not listening. So think of the lesson as an opportunity to give your child more awareness of what they're doing so they can be more responsible about how they listen, their presence with you, what they understand when you're talking to them, what they don't understand, and get more on page with the, the challenges we have to when children don't listen. And they have so much emotion and physical sensation and energy inside of them that it changes how they listen. And this is a video to help those kids understand that so that they can get more aware of what they're doing when they're not listening or paying attention. We use the body so it gives them a tangible connection to how they think and how they feel. If we talk about emotion and we talk about thinking, it's not going to be as clear to them unless they can feel it. So this is how to teach them awareness of how to feel what they're doing so they can have better listening and attention skills. The first segment is basically teaching how hearing changes with the direction of their attention. So if their attention is focused on their crayons, their hearing changes. And if they're not aware of that, then they can't decide to do anything different. If we punish them because they're not listening, they respond more in fear than getting a sense of themselves and how to be more aware of what's going on and how to integrate that or talk to you about it so that they can listen better. So the first segment is just a couple minutes long. Each segment, there's 4 segments. They're each a couple minutes long, and they're intended to be used one a week. So if the children practice this for 6 weeks, they'll get it. They'll use it in their day, in their life, if you help them adapt to it, to the lesson into their day. So think about the first week as just teaching awareness that their hearing changes according to their attention. That's all. They're not in trouble. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just not aware of what they were doing that caused their listening to change. The second week is to start to use mindfulness or use the body to become more aware of our actions, the responsibility of our actions, what we're doing in relationship to what interests us inside, to how that affects what's going on around us. So we change the idea that quiet time or step out in the hall is not a punishment, but actually an opportunity. How many times in our day do we have the opportunity to push the outer world aside and just check in with what's going on inside of us so we can get kind of more clear of how whatever happened outside didn't work. So more responsibility to our own actions. And we turn the attention, so the attention was towards the crayons. So we turn the attention towards the body, but to do that, we have to use something that will grab the attention. And because the kids feel more than they think, we're using the breath in the movement, the feeling of the movement of the breath to grab their attention and harness it inside of themselves. So we use breath and we use the sound of a vibration, and we use the word home because it's when you make a sound, it helps the exhalation go longer. The longer and more centered the exhalation is, the more calm and centering the nervous system gets. And this is very helpful for stress. It's very helpful for emotional distress. Emotion always changes the feeling of the breath. And if attention goes to the breath and follows an exhalation, it helps to kind of gather that reaction, that reactive response, and pull that reaction into some kind of root, some kind of center foundation that they can kind of check in with. The sound home, we use the word home because we want them to identify with a home inside and clarify the difference between home inside and a home that's a house that we live in. This home is to give them a place of security to check in that's with them all the time, that no one can take away. So we use that attention to follow the sensation of breath and sound, to go inside and center the selves. And when the self gets centered, awareness of what happens, what shifts, what kind of new things kind of pop up and get realized. How the emotion shifts, how the perception shifts, or maybe even widens. The third segment is to really anchor the learning to the body, using the body to have a reference point, something tangible. The kids feel more than they think. So if they feel their body, they understand what they're thinking. They understand their actions. They understand what they're doing. This can be used even in if they feel their body better, to understand what foods make them hyper and what foods make them sluggish. The body is this biofeedback machine that is giving them all this information. It's so alive in them because they're so young, and their thinking isn't pulling that awareness away from what their whole self is talking about and experiencing. So anchoring the awareness into the body, a mindfulness lesson that uses the body, uses the body as an ally to understand the self. And the kids will understand this so much easier than you may if you're an adult. I've used this for 9 years, and it is astounding what it will do for the children. If they can learn the feeling sensation of home and how to bring themselves to that reference point, to recap what is happening, to come from there listening, to get a sense of what home is saying in relationship to what they're learning or what you want them to do. They can share what's going on for them and maybe why they can't do what you want them to do. One example was a teacher that told us that this little girl was in 3rd grade, couldn't learn reading. And after she took the program, and this is just a tip of the iceberg lesson, she realized that every time reading lesson came out, she stopped breathing. If someone stops breathing, it starts increasing anxiety. And when that anxiety starts expanding, it overtakes everything. Everything blacks out. They can't even see the chalkboard. There's so much going on inside because they're not breathing. It's a survival instinct. And she wasn't aware that that's what was happening. And so when she did this lesson and she centered herself and she asked that feeling of home to listen to the lesson, to listen to what's being shared with her, she could start to hear and see what the lesson was all about. So really you're giving your child a foundation to become fully alive in who they are, and utilize the potential of what they have by helping them engage with what they're all about, to how the world is teaching them. The last piece of the lesson is just to kind of recap on how we need to adapt the practice of home and what that gives us, the feeling sensation of home after we do the lesson, to what's going on outside of us, whether we're in conflict with somebody or where we're learning something, we're taking a test, we're stressed, we're rushed, and see if we can drop into home and see how that would approach the situation, and the awareness of how perception changes. That's a life skill and a tool that's so much easier to learn if you're a child. But a child will not learn it and not remember it if the family isn't applying it with themselves, if the classroom isn't applying it. They'll learn it in that moment, but they won't adapt it to their culture, to their world, to the way they use themselves in the world, and how to engage who they are into what they're learning and become who really the gift that our children are. Thank you for listening, and please let me know how it goes. If the children have a very challenging behavior and it's not working, there's something sensory motor with their senses and their muscular system that needs integration. They may need some hands-on work with Feldenkrais work. This will help kind of change the whole sensory body so that it's not so alive and pulling the attention in all different directions, and really helps center it. So check in and let me know how it goes. Thanks for listening. Aloha.